Hi friends, Cass here. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag challenge and just talking about my favorite books of the year so far. I've seen so many wonderful people here on BookTube do this video already, and I had really wanted to do it back at the beginning of July, but life got in the way and I didn't get a chance to. So better late than never, I guess. It's currently July 21st, so we're a couple weeks past the actual halfway point of the year, but I think that's fine. I also feel like I look especially like fancy today. I am going out to dinner with my parents and my sister after I film this video because I turned 25 in a couple days, and that's how we celebrate birthdays in my family. We're going to this restaurant called The Library, so I'm really curious to see if it's like super bookish inside. I think that their drinks are named after books. And yeah, then we're going to get ice cream because I love ice cream, and yeah, I'm excited. By the time you guys see this, I'll have already made the transformation from 24-year-old to 25-year-old, so yeah. But anyways, if you're new here, we talk a lot about literary fiction and nonfiction here. I love essay collections and memoirs specifically. So if that's your thing, maybe subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. I love chatting with you guys about books. And yeah, let's get into the mid-year freakout tag. I'm actually going to start off by going over my Storygraph stats for the year. I saw Katie James do this in her video, and I feel like that's a nice way to kind of check in. So I'm just going to talk about these real quick. My goal that I set for 2020, I almost said 2022, for 2024 was 52 books, and I beat that right at the end of June, beginning of July, I believe. I just finished up book number 57 yesterday, so I think I'm on track to read at least 100 books this year. I always set my goal to be a lot lower than 100 just so that it remains manageable, but I do think that I'm on track to continue with reading 100 books in a year. Storygraph actually just added a new stat, which is the average time to finish a book, and it says that mine is 6 days, which I guess, I don't know, I guess that makes sense because there are some books that it's taken me like almost an entire month to finish, and then some books I fly through in like 2 days, so I guess it all evens out. My top moods for the year are the same as always: reflective, emotional, dark, challenging, informative, and then really small on the pie chart are funny, sad, inspiring, mysterious, hopeful, intense. And I think that reflective, emotional, and dark are always like my top 3. The pace of the books that I've read, were at 57% medium, 29% slow, and 14% fast, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm not really one for a super plotty, fast-paced book. For page number, 75% of them have been less than 300, which really makes a lot of sense, and then the remaining 25% have been 300 to 499. Nothing over 500 pages for me yet this year. I honestly don't know if there are any that will be over 500 pages that I plan on reading. I'm a short book girly. It's just where my comfort zone is, and I just tend to enjoy them more, so I do like to stick with less than 300 pages. We're at a 63% fiction and 37% nonfiction split. I would like to see this even out a little bit more, closer to like 50-50 as we continue throughout the year. I think I typically am pretty good about reading a mixture of both, but I know in June I read all fiction, and I think in July so far I'm also reading mostly fiction. Oh, maybe that's not true. I think it might be 50-50 for July so far, but yeah, I really enjoy memoirs and essay collections. Like I said, I just haven't been picking them up as often as I normally do, so hoping to kind of even that out as we go along. And then my top 5 genres are literary, memoir, contemporary, essays, and LGBTQIA, with feminism falling closely behind. That absolutely tracks for me. I love literary fiction, and that's just the majority of what I've read. And then I have a like tag that I created on Storygraph for myself to keep track of like the format of books that I'm reading and like where I've gotten books from. So 22 of the books that I've read so far I've own. 12 I've gotten from the library. 10 were on NetGalley. 6 were ebooks on Scribd. 3 were ARCs that I was sent. 2 I borrowed from a friend, and 1 was a ebook from Levy. I love to see that owned is the biggest category there, and that I'm actually reading books that I've spent my money on. I have a humongous TBR shelf, and it's always my goal to read from it more, so hoping to see that number grow as we go on. And then my most read authors are Rachel Cusk. I've read 2 of her books, but one of them I've reread, so she's in there 3 times. Then Lisa Tuttle, this is also because I read her book twice. Annie Ernaux, I've read 2 books. Deborah Levy, I've read 2 books. And Marie Andia, I've read 2 books. And those are all authors that I really love, so that makes a lot of sense. Finally, my average rating of my books that I've read is 3.92 stars, which I think that that's a decent rating. 3 stars to me is like fine, 4 was like really good, 5 is like new favorite. And I feel like I've gotten a lot more restrained about giving out 5 stars to books this year. Just kind of like thinking more deeply about the books that I'm reading and really trying to figure out like what I liked, what I didn't like. So I've given out fewer 5 stars than I have in the past. All right, now on to the mid-year freakout tag questions. Number 1 is, how has your 2024 reading year gone so far? I would say that it's gone pretty solid, honestly. I feel like I've really found my niche and picking up books that I'm really enjoying. And one of the things that I'm noticing with my reading a lot too is that the books that I'm reading are kind of in conversation with each other, and there's different like connections and themes that run throughout a lot of the books that I'm reading. So that just makes the experience so much more immersive for me and so much more rewarding. One of the other goals that I had for the year was to take the time to sit with the books that I read and, like I said, figure out what I liked about them, what I didn't like, and my goal was to write a review for every single book that I read, even if it was just like one quick sentence of thoughts. And I'm really happy to say that I have written like decently sized reviews for all of the books that I've read so far, and that's been really helpful to make these videos as well, because I can kind of use them as like my notes or my script whenever I do my monthly wrap-ups. So it's been really pushing me to just engage more with the books that I'm reading instead of finishing them, picking a star rating, and then moving on to the next one. I kind of have to really sit and think and put my thoughts to paper or screen. I feel really good about where things have been so far this year. Question number 2 is, what is the best book that you've read so far in 2024? And this is where the like best books of the year so far thing comes into play. I'm going to tell you guys just really quickly about the 5-star books that I have read so far this year. I did drop my stack of books before I started filming this, so they are now out of order, but I'm gonna start with 2 that I don't have physical copies of. The first one is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. I do think that this was my first 5-star of the year. It is a really kind of like a slice of life literary fiction novel that follows our main protagonist. I believe her name is Casey, if I'm remembering correctly. I could be wrong about that. It's been like 6 months since I read it, but we see her dealing with the death of her mother and dealing with different romantic relationships. She's working kind of a dead-end job in a restaurant and trying to become a writer, and it just really struck me in an emotional way for how simple and mundane the story is. I was just rooting for the main character the entire time and just really felt like a connection to her. It was very relatable, and yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Obviously, because I rated it 5 stars. The other one that I don't have a physical copy of is Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. I read this, I think, back in May. This is a book dealing with motherhood. We have Soldier, the mother, and the book is told kind of as like a bedtime story to Sailor, who is the young son. And it just talks about the like first year or so of Sailor's life and just how difficult it is as a new mom, and Soldier, what's her name? Sailor's relationship with her husband really deteriorated throughout that like first year after they had their kid, and it was just really well written. It was kind of just like visceral and really raw and honest, and just really well written, and a good look at motherhood, which is something that I love in books. Next is Exposure by Olivia Sudjic. This is a nonfiction, and in this, Sudjic is grappling with the aftermath of the publication of her first novel, Sympathy, which was a 5-star read for me last year. And she just kind of explores the internet and the way that we present ourselves online, and the way that authors are kind of expected to be available to people online. She dealt with a lot of anxiety about that, and she also looks at a bunch of authors that are some of my favorites in this and explores their work and how they deal with similar ideas. So this was just a really cool little read that connected so many other parts of like my personal literary canon together, and it was really, really fun to go through. Then we have My Death by Lisa Tuttle. This is absolutely the most like mind-boggling book that I read this year. This talks about an author who is going through the loss of her husband, and she's trying to figure out what her next writing project is going to be. And there's a series of like coincidences that leads her to write an autobiography of this kind of obscure artist and author named Helen. And she ends up meeting Helen and like interviewing her, and there's all these like uncanny similarities between the two of them, and it gets like weirder and weirder as you go on, and then something really crazy happens. And yeah, it's absolutely wild. I read this book twice in the span of 1 week because I just couldn't get over how crazy this was. I don't want to like give away anything more than that, but this had my jaw on the floor. Next is Beloved by Toni Morrison. This is the 3rd Morrison that I read, and it definitely will not be my last. I'm really excited to continue on with her books. This is about Setha, who was a slave that escaped from the farm that she was on. She raises her daughter, and there is a ghost involved in this. I don't want to get too far into the plot with this. Morrison's writing is just so skillful. The way that she builds up the details and the like backstories of the character here is really incredible. And she's just like exploring memory and trauma and the passage of time, and it's just done so well. Obviously, it's Toni Morrison. You can't go wrong with her. And then we have Splinters by Leslie Jamison. This is a memoir also dealing with motherhood and a failing marriage and relationship. This is one that I was really excited for whenever it was released at the beginning of the year, and I was not disappointed at all. I really love the way that Jamison explores motherhood in here, and she creates a really interesting dynamic between herself, her daughter, and her mother. And you see the way that the 3 of them kind of had this bond that like pushed her husband away. It was just really interesting to see how she kind of perpetuated the same really close bond that she had with her mother, with her own daughter, if that makes sense. But the writing in here was really stunning and honest and really great memoir. Probably one of, if not my favorite memoirs that I've read this year. Then we have Arlington Park by Rachel Cusk. This is following a group of women that live in an English suburb. They all have husbands and children, and they are just trying to navigate domestic life. They all kind of have their own issues that they're dealing with and their own things that are causing them to be unhappy with their situations. So we go back and forth between them over the course of a day, and then everything kind of culminates in a dinner party scene at the end of the book. And I absolutely love the writing in this. This is an earlier Cusk, so she's very like descriptive and almost playful with her writing here, and I thought that the characterization was great. I thought that the description of the like settings and the scenes were really wonderful, and yeah, I think this is probably my favorite Cusk fiction. And then we have Zami, A New Spelling of My Name by Audre Lorde. This is the first that I've read from Lorde, and I was so stunned by this book. I feel like I have not seen nearly enough people talk about this. I see people talk a lot about like her nonfiction and like some of her shorter works, but this is like just like top tier memoir, personal writing. I was so impressed with it. It goes through her life up until her 20s, so we get to see her childhood and her kind of becoming a young woman and going out on her own. I feel like I really struggled to like write a review for this because of how much I loved it, but just hearing her story and all of the hardships that she faced and the way that she got herself through it, was just really moving to read and really well done. Then we have The Last Sane Woman by Hannah Regel. This is a recent release from Verso, and I had received a copy of it on NetGalley and loved it so much that I immediately ordered a physical copy to have on my shelf. This follows Nicola, who is a recent college graduate. She's an artist and a sculptor, and she's kind of feeling lost and she's not sure what she wants to do next in her life. And she discovers these letters between two women from like the 70s and 80s, Donna and Susan. Donna is also a sculptor, and her work kind of lived in obscurity. Susan is her best friend that she's writing to, and she has like a really like traditional life with a husband and a child and a house and everything. And so we see the contrast between all of these characters. Nicola is reading the letters that Donna wrote, but she doesn't have Donna's name. So she feels such an incredible connection between her and Donna that she goes on this journey to figure out who Donna was. And it has a lot of really similar themes to My Death by Lisa Tuttle, just as far as like this connection with art and with an artist and feeling so similar to someone. But this doesn't have like the weird metaphysical stuff that My Death does. So yeah, I love this and highly recommend it as a new release that you should check out. And then my last 5-star book, this also kind of goes along with question number 3, which is best sequel you've read so far in 2024, and that is The Story of a New Name by Elena Ferrante. This is the second book in the Neapolitan novels quartet, and it's the only sequel that I've read so far this year. Luckily, it was incredible, and I rated it 5 stars. I had such an amazing time with this book. I was really like not fully sold on the Neapolitan novels hype after reading the first book, My Brilliant Friend. I was like, this is fine, but I don't see why everyone raves about these books all the time. And then I read this and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. These books follow two best friends, Lenu and Lila. They're living in Naples in like the 1950s, and My Brilliant Friend follows them through their childhood. This sees them become young women and get married, go to college, all the life changes that happen in that time. What I really loved about this was how much higher the stakes felt in this book, It really sucked me in and I needed to know what happened next. And I still need to know what happened next. I'm considering picking up book 3, but I also kind of want to wait. I feel like this is like a really good summer series, so I might wait until next summer to do book 3 if I can hold out for that long. But yeah, I absolutely love this. Best sequel that I've read, only sequel that I've read. Great. Question number 4 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I'm gonna say the same thing that like everybody else has said for this question, and that is All Fours by Miranda July. Even though I'm a skeptic, okay, I am not sold on this being the book for me, just because I really did not have a good time with her short story collection. It is one of my least favorite books that I have ever read. I'm so sorry to all the Miranda July stans. I've seen so many good reviews about All Fours that I'm willing to give her another shot, but I don't know. I'm very intrigued. I've bought into the hype. I've been influenced to read it, so I'm actually waiting on my library hold to come in. If I had filmed this video at the beginning of July like I was planning to, 2 of the books that would have been answers to this question would have been Worry by Alexandra Tanner and Grief is for People by Sloane Crosley. I have these checked out from the library and finished reading them a couple weeks ago, and I really enjoyed both of them. They both came out back in the spring, and I finally decided to pick them up from the library. So yeah, enjoyed both of these. I'm curious to see what my thoughts on the Miranda July are going to be. Question 5 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have 2 answers for this. One is The Position of Spoons by Deborah Levy. This is her new nonfiction, kind of like fragmentary essay kind of thing that's coming out in October from FSG. Luckily, I have a copy of it on NetGalley, and I do plan on picking it up soon. I'd say maybe like in September. I do want to read her novel August Blue in August, and then I'll move on to The Position of Spoons. Levy's one of my favorite authors, and I've enjoyed her living autobiography, which is her other nonfiction, so I'm hoping that this one also hits for me. And then the other answer that I have for this is the answer that literally everyone else also has, and that is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I've enjoyed all 3 of her previous books. This one, I'm like kind of not as sold on the description of it, but I'm really curious to see what she does with the storyline of like the 2 brothers. I've seen a lot of people saying that this is sort of like a more like mature kind of turning point for her, and I think I've seen someone say that it's going to kind of separate like the real Sally Rooney fans from the not Sally Rooney fans. So yeah, I don't know, it seems like it's going to be kind of a departure for her, and it should be an interesting experience once that is released. Question number 6 is biggest disappointment of 2024 so far. I had a couple different thoughts kind of swirling around in my head for this, because there are definitely some books that I've read that I thought that I would love a lot more than I did. They weren't bad by any means, but I was just expecting them to like become new favorites, and they didn't. But the answer that I settled on for this question is There But For The by Ali Smith, which I got out from the library in the spring. I've read all of the Seasonal Quartet by Ali Smith, and those were kind of hit and miss for me, but I wanted to try some of her standalone books, and I read There But For The, and it made me question whether or not I want to continue reading from Ali Smith, which maybe sounds kind of harsh, but I just don't know that she is an author for me at this point. She is doing some really crazy stuff with language in there, and it kind of got in the way of like any sort of narrative or plot lines for me, and it just felt disjointed, didn't make much sense. I had a tough time with it, and I was like, I just don't know if I want to pick up any more of her books. I have How to Be Both on my like cart of books, because that is one that I had chosen at the beginning of the year as like one of my 10 books that I wanted to read in 2024, and I'm like, I don't even know if I want to pick that up. Luckily, that is like the only book of hers that I own that I haven't read yet, so I'm thinking maybe I'll try it out and that'll be like the deciding factor. I have had people tell me that that one is better than There Before The, so maybe it'll work out for me, but I don't know. I was just really put off by my experience with There Before The. Number 7 is biggest surprise of 2024. That would have to be My Death by Lisa Tuttle, like I talked about in my top 10 books of the year so far. Just surprising as far as the plot went and as far as how much I loved it. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it, but Lisa Tuttle slayed, and I know she has like other books. I'm not sure if they're in the same vein as My Death, but she is an author that I would like to explore more, because if those other books are kind of like similar, like exploring like art and like the literary world in like a really weird way, I think she could become a favorite author. Number 8 is favorite author, new to you or debut. For new to me, I'm going to say Audre Lorde because of my experience with Zami, and I also have her like selected works as one of the books that I had been planning on reading for my like 10 books for 2024. So I plan on continuing my journey with her. I just feel like she is such an important voice, and I'm really excited to continue reading from her. As far as a debut author, I'd probably have to go with Hannah Regel with The Last Sane Woman. Not to keep like rehashing, you know, my favorite books of the year, but she really like did something to my brain with that book. I know she has released some like poetry before, but this is her first novel, so that's who I'm going to choose for debut. Question 9 is newest fictional crush. I don't have an answer for this. I don't think that I read the type of books that you have a crush on the characters. It's not really my thing, so we're gonna skip that. Question 10 is a book that made you cry, and I don't know that I've necessarily cried at any books yet. Not that I can think of. I even did a search in like my notes where I have all of my written out reviews. I've searched cry just to see if I'd like mentioned in a review that something made me cry, and nothing came up. But one book that did make me like a lot more emotional than I was expecting to get was Liars by Sarah Manguso, which actually is publishing on my birthday on July 23rd. So by the time you guys see this, this will be out. I freaking love this. This is kind of similar to Soldier Sailor in that it's talking about a failing marriage and early motherhood, but the writing in this, I had such a visceral reaction to the situations in this book. It's focused a bit more on like the marriage and relationship than it is on motherhood, and some of the things that the main character went through with her husband were just so like, they made me so angry, and like I just was really feeling the emotions that this book was presenting like hard. So I didn't cry, but this like altered my headspace while I was reading it. Question 11 is book you saw on TikTok and regret reading. And I don't use TikTok very much in general, but I especially do not use it for like books. Like I'm not on Book Talk at all. So I don't have something that I was influenced by TikTok to read. I was trying to think if there were any books that like social media or YouTube influenced me to read that I regret. And I wouldn't say that I regret any of the books that I read this year. I feel like they all served a purpose and, you know, helped me understand my reading taste more. So I don't have anything that I'm like, oh my God, why did I waste my time with that? Question 12 is most beautiful book you bought this year. I actually just talked about this in my last video, which was my Chicago book haul. But I would have to say A Horse at Night on Writing by Amina Cain is the most beautiful book that I've purchased this year. This is from the Dorothy Project, and I bought a couple other of their books in that haul that are also beautiful, but this one takes the cake for me. We have the oil painting on the front, and then it wraps around to the back as well, and I love the vibes. I think that this is stunning book design, and it was also a really great book. Question 13 is, what are the books you need to read by the end of the year? So I have my 10 books for 2024 that I wanted to read. I have a couple left from that list. I still need to get to the second volume of Susan Sontag's diaries, the selected works of Audre Lorde, the corrections by Jonathan Franzen, and How to Be Both by Ali Smith. I believe that those are all of the ones that I had left from that group of books. I'm currently reading Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector, which was also on that list. Really enjoying that so far. Besides that, I also have the rereads that I talked about in a recent video that I wanted to kind of work on as a project for the last 6 months of the year. So I still need to get to all 6 of those. I plan on picking up Second Place by Rachel Cusk this week for that little like project. Beyond that, though, I would really like to keep up with my NetGalley requests that I've received. My goal is to read those either before the month that they're released or in the month that they're released. So I know that I have like one coming up that's going to be released in August, 2 that are being released in September. So as long as I can like stay on schedule with those, I'll be a happy camper. And then just like a random pick that I would like to get to is A Life of One's Own by Marion Milner. This was in my summer TBR list that I made a video about. Haven't gotten to it yet, but maybe in August I will. This is like a nonfiction exploration into the author's journey to figure out what makes her happy and like how to live her life in a way that's fulfilling. It was published in the 1930s, so I'm really intrigued to see what Marion Milner is going to have to say in this, and see what I can apply to like my own life, you know, just because it was written in a completely different time than now. But yeah, this is one that I would definitely like to get to before the end of the year. And then we have some like YouTube related questions at the end here. Number 14 is favorite video that you've made so far in 2024. I have to say my Rachel Cusk video is the answer to that question. It was a very daunting video to make. Like, the thought of doing my favorite author justice and talking about all of the books that I've read of hers, you know, it was like a big task. And I feel like I did a pretty decent job, and I feel like that video has kind of served as a reference for a lot of people. I've gotten so many comments that people have like ordered the specific books that I recommended because they watched that video, which is like a really cool thing to hear. And then also the fact that I reviewed Parade in that video as well. I had received that on NetGalley, and that was just like such a cool moment to have my favorite author's newest book before it was released to the entire world. Like, who would have thought? Not me. So yeah, I'm really proud of that one. Question 15 is a video that you thought would flop but did well. And I didn't necessarily think that it would flop, but my summer TBR video is actually the most viewed video on my channel, and I don't know how that happened. Like, I didn't go into it with the intention of it like doing super well. You know, it was just a fun video for me to make, but it has like 4,000 views, and that's more than any other video on my channel. So something in the algorithm took a hold of it, I guess, for some reason. So that was like just kind of strange and random. Question 16 is any upcoming videos that you're excited to make? And I have kind of 2 answers for this. I really want to make more videos that are similar to my essay collections recommendation video, where I kind of like pick a genre or a theme or something like that and just recommend a bunch of books based on that. So I have like a couple different ideas in my notes, like memoir recommendations, books about motherhood, short books, translated books. I would like to kind of compile more lists of books like that. They're just like a big undertaking to me for some reason. They seem very intimidating. I think because I have to go back to books that I've read in previous years before I really started documenting my thoughts on them. So yeah, they kind of take some time for me to get like psyched up to do, but I'm looking forward to doing more of those. And I think I would like to do more like author focused videos like I did with Cusk. I'm not sure who else I would do at this point in time. I don't think that I've read another author's like entire catalog or like have gotten close to it in the way that I have with Cusk. So I don't know who I would do for that, but as I continue, you know, in my reading journey, I would like to make more of those videos just because I think that they're a really good reference for other people that are trying to figure out where to start with certain authors. And then the last question, number 17, is any channel goals before the end of the year? I would say maybe get to 3,000 subscribers. I just hit 2,000 a little bit ago. I think I'm at like 2.08 thousand right now. So we still have a ways to go before 3K, but I think that that would be like super cool. But other than that, I just really want to stay consistent with making videos and posting because this is just like a really great outlet for me. I like it for two reasons. One, I like having documentation of what I've read and my thoughts. You know, one day I can like look back on this and see my real-time thoughts on what I was reading, and I think that's just super cool to have. And then I also love it because I get to connect with people, and I've met so many great people because of this and have had so many wonderful conversations, and it's just so rewarding and fun to have that like community aspect to my reading. So yeah, I just want to keep doing it, really is the bottom line there. All right, that is all of the questions for the mid-year freakout tag. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know how your reading year has gone so far. I hope it's been going well, as I feel mine has. What's your favorite book that you've read? What's your least favorite book that you've read? Start some drama in the comments, I don't know. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!